Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days for today's second video. This will take us to around the 14th of January. So we're going into the middle part of January with the week 10 day updates. Now, we can actually go a little bit beyond that with the extended GFS, of course. And we'll also have a little bit on the ECMWF for the next month as well. That'll be at the end of the video. So JMA Friday has been released. That video is here on the homepage. Just scroll down the page a little bit and you'll find it above Snow Desk. So that's taking us into the end of January, and also the trends are for things to be turning colder as we get into the second half, particularly the latter stages of January. Signs of northern blocking appearing with both the JMA and the CFS V2 model. So do have a look at that and see what's going on there. We'll be looking for signs of northern blocking in the week to 10 day time frame as well. Before I get on with the video, I had another donation, so I've got to say a big thank you to our latest PayPal donor. Nicholas Smith has become our latest donor for Gazovis. So a big thank you to Nicholas for becoming our latest donor through PayPal. This is the Gazovis.me PayPal page. So if you would like to become a donor for Gazovis, then all you need to do is come to the Gazovis PayPal.me page. We link to this in the description of YouTube and on all the pages of Gazovis. So you just come into this page, sign into your PayPal account, and then from there you can donate whatever amount of money that you would like through PayPal. Been a huge success. Big thank you to everybody for becoming PayPal donors to have done so over the past few months. We started this in June and totally blown away by the response that we have had. There is, of course, also the Patreon page. So again, you can find the link to this page in the description at YouTube and on all pages at Gazovis. So you just come here, sign up for a Patreon account, and the idea of this is that's like an ongoing donation. So PayPal's like a one-off, but of course you can donate as many times as you want, but Patreon is like an ongoing monthly donation. Got 52 patrons so far, so a big thank you to all of the patrons for Gazovis. And again, you just come to this page, sign up for a Patreon account, and then you can pledge whatever amount of money you would like to pledge, and you become a patron for Gazovis. Either way, you're going to mention in videos as long as you want one. So yeah, big thank you to all the patrons, big thank you to all the PayPal donors. You're helping us to pay for our website, and a special thank you to our latest donor, Nicholas Smith. Big thank you, Nicholas, for becoming a donor for Gazovis. Right, we'll start off with what's going on in the stratosphere over the North Pole. Then this is how temperatures are currently looking at 10 HPA over the North Pole. So we have the southern stratospheric warming at the end of December. That's where the black line shot up to there. It's cooling down now. That's where we currently are at the moment, somewhere just a little bit under minus 30 degrees from a peak of nearly minus 10. At the end of December. So temperatures have dropped around 20 degrees, but still well above average. We should be, at this point of the year, somewhere around sort of minus 70 to minus 65 degrees. So we're still a lot warmer than average at 10 HPA, but the temperature is lowering now. We can't sustain those really high temperature levels in the stratosphere all that long, so you would expect that temperature would start to lower at 10 HPA. Go a little bit further down to 30 HPA, that's what where we're standing, that's how things are looking. So it looks like yesterday was the peak of the southern stratospheric warming at 30 HPA, just there, somewhere around minus 45 degrees. We have dropped that temperature a little bit over the past 24 hours or so. And similar to what's happening at 10 HPA, we can expect a gradual reduction of the temperature over the next few days. So, southern stratospheric warming has occurred, and now the temperatures are starting to lower a little bit in the stratosphere. Zonal winds are in reverse. This is from the ECMWF via the University of Berlin. So we can see with this blue line here, very much a downwards trend at 10 HPA with the zonal winds. That's where we're currently sitting. So again, we're underneath this all-important zero line just here. That tells us that the zonal winds have gone into reverse, and the ECMWF is forecasting that zonal winds will stay in reverse for the next 10 days as well. Doesn't look like we're going to get a reversal of the zone of winds at 30 HPA. That's that little bit lower down. But certainly very weak zone of winds from where they were earlier on in the winter, where we see that red line just there. So it's all still happening in the stratosphere. We've got to start looking now increasingly for a response to this in the troposphere. One of the ways we'll do that is by keeping an eye on the Arctic Oscillation and North Atlantic Oscillation. So this is the AO observed and forecast chart. We can see from the black line where we've been with the Arctic Oscillations, from the red lines the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. Currently, we're sitting at just slightly positive AO conditions. However, you can see the GFS ensembles, certainly for the next week to 10 days, are trending downwards with the Arctic Oscillation. Excuse me. This is telling us that there's an increasing risk of high pressure building up over the North Pole as we're heading into the second week of January and through to the middle part of the month. When the AO is negative, that's happening because you've got high pressure developing over the Arctic. And it's always the weather that drives the index. It's not the other way around. It's not the index driving the weather. The reason the index is going negative there is because there's Arctic high pressure developing. So it looks like the trend as we go up towards the middle of January is increasingly to raise the heights and build the pressure over the Arctic. So it looks like the AO is trending downwards. Around the middle of January, it's quite interesting. There are several members of the GFS subbles that are really crashing the AO. A few are going for a bit of a recovery in the AO as well. And that's around a period where you'd expect blocking, if anything, to be strengthening. So I think that is a little bit more speculative. This period just here, though, which is kind of like for the sort of week to 10-day time frame, that does look solidly negative with the AO. As far as the NAO is concerned, it's a very similar thing. This time it's reflecting the state of the atmosphere in the North Atlantic as opposed to the Arctic. The black line again telling us where we've been with the NAO, go right way back into the end of the summer. The red lines at the end where GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to go. We're negative with the NAO at the moment. We're just there in negative territory. It looks like over the next few days, the NAO is generally going to trend to weekly positive territory and possibly staying there up to the middle of January, although there are a few ensemble members by the middle of January that are trending the NAO negative. So it's a little bit complicated what's happening there. We've got the two indexes kind of like at odds with one another. The Arctic Oscillation looks like it's very much, certainly for the next week to 10 days, looks like it's very much trending into negative territory, set up for a negative AO. But the NAO looks like it's actually trending a little bit more positive. So we've got the atmosphere a little bit fighting with one another, I think, as we're heading into the middle part of January. Obviously, there will be high pressure developing close to the Arctic for the AO to be going into negative territory. But at the same time, it looks like the NAO will be actually cranking up. The Atlantic will actually be cranking up a little bit. That's sending the NAO a little bit more positive. So expect a little bit of a strengthening, perhaps, of the Icelandic low and the Azores high. A little bit of strengthening of the westerlies coming across the Atlantic. But at the same time, that could be engaging with some high pressure developing over the Arctic, which will be a complicated pattern for the models to try and resolve. To get sustained locked-in cold weather and blocking, what we want to do is send both the AO and the NAO into solidly negative territory. If we do that, if we see that on these charts, then we'll be able to say that the GFS ensembles, anyway, are really starting to lock in northern blocking. This is how the GFS ensembles themselves are looking in terms of the upper air temperatures and precipitation. We're looking at Dorking in Surrey today. Someone's asked to have a look at Dorking. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Dorking. We're starting off rather milder than average. Actually, temperatures are above average, but having an inversion, which means it's colder on the surface than it is aloft. Last night, temperatures for central England went down to -5, -6 degrees, despite the fact that the upper air temperatures are actually a little bit milder than average. Of course, if this was summer, then this would be quite hot. If you've got upper air temperatures that are above average with high pressure in summer, you'll have long sunny days typically, and temperatures will be very warm or hot. But in winter, what tends to happen under high pressure is that you'll have mild air aloft, but you will cool things down very quickly on the surface, and we call that an inversion. So despite the fact it's mild aloft, it's actually quite cold down on the surface. Now, as we go through to next week, we see that the upper air temperatures are trending downwards, so it's turning colder with the upper air temperatures through to the middle of next week. That's as we get a little bit of a northerly snap coming along through the middle of next week, and that may be colder to produce some wintry showers for northern and eastern parts of the country in particular. But it gets very confused beyond that as we go further through this second week of January and up to the middle and then the second half of the month. We find briefly a slight recovery of the temperature taking place in the second half of next week before another drop in the temperature looks like it's appearing through into the second half of the month. Again, that's the 15th of January just there. This middle part of January and up into the second half of the month, that's the period, I think, that we're focusing on for an increasing risk of northern blocking from this sudden stratospheric warming. But of course, that's right at the very extended range, so there's a lot of uncertainty about that. Precipitation-wise, it looks very dry in Dorking for the next week to 10 days. Very little precipitation at all. Excuse me again, so we've got this tickly cough from that I had before Christmas. So very dry conditions really for the next week to 10 days. Gradually the precipitation spikes are coming back around the middle second half of the month, but to be honest, again, for a midwinter ensemble chart, that is really quite dry indeed. There's no sign of any sustained wet weather, I don't think, certainly for the next week to 10 days. Temperature anomalies from the 4th through to 12th of January are forecast to be a little bit cooler than average in most of the UK, especially England and Wales, a little bit less so for Scotland and Northern Ireland. It's not a big deviation, but it certainly looks rather on the cold side, really, for England and Wales in particular. Precipitation anomalies from the 4th to the 12th of January, very dry, so that backs up what I was just saying, although there may be some little bits and pieces of rain coming and going. Overall, for midwinter, very, very dry conditions, so from the 4th to the 12th of January, much drier than average. That's how the GFS is looking for Monday. Then we've got high pressure to our south, deepening area of low pressure up to our north. That could bring gale or severe gale force winds to parts of Scotland, and possibly some heavy rain too. As that low pressure moves away towards Norway on Tuesday, turns the winds into the north. So this is that little northerly snap that I was talking about. Winds go into the north Tuesday to Wednesday. We bring cold air down from the north, possibly cold enough for wintry showers, or maybe even snow showers for northern eastern parts of Scotland before this high pressure starts to topple in from the Atlantic. The second half of next week looks like it's dominated by high pressure, and very gradually it looks like we start to move some rather milder air or less cold air back in from off the Atlantic once again. That's how we look as we get towards Saturday the 12th of January with high pressure just down to our southwest, feeding in this westerly wind from off the Atlantic. So mainly dry and relatively mild conditions there as we go from the 12th through to the 13th of January. We're moving up towards day 10, and we've got signs then that we begin to pull this high pressure northwards into the northern Atlantic. So you'll notice this northwesterly is setting up. So that's bringing cooler air into Scotland as we get to day 10, Monday the 14th of January. It looks like this high pressure set's pulling northwards into the northern Atlantic. Look what happens as we get through to Tuesday the 15th. We start to move that high pressure up towards Greenland and begin to bring active cold fronts down across the country. There's two cold fronts that are showing up there. We've got a cold front just here. With that engaged in the ice bars, then there's another cold front just here. It's behind this second cold front, but we have got some really truly Arctic air beginning to move in behind that second cold front. And that Arctic air is unleashed on this GFS run. This is a 6 o'clock run of the GFS. We really turn wind into the north as we get through to Wednesday the 16th of January. There'll probably be a band of snow moving southwards, and then really cold air chasing in from behind from the north. Then we go through to Thursday, the 17th of January. We're in this really cold northerly wind. There is a ridge of high pressure in the Atlantic. It's not true northern blocking, despite the fact that for a while the high pressure does get up towards Greenland. It doesn't really set up a proper Greenland high. But nevertheless, we are in a real northerly plunge there. You can follow the isobars back and you can see that the air is originating from a very, very long way north, right in the Arctic Circle, and that's pushing southwards all the way down to southern Spain and North Africa. So a real northerly plunge coming along there. The high begins to topple as we go through to Friday the 18th of January, but we're still in very cold air. And that's how we look on Sunday the 20th. So we haven't started to move the Atlantic into that cold air at that point, but it does look as though we're beginning to raise heights to our east, actually. So I think we're having a go anyway at raising some high pressure up over Scandinavia as these areas of low pressure are moving in, but without much conviction from off the Atlantic. So a little bit inconclusive where that's going, but if we could run another day or two, I suspect we would probably find ourselves getting a Scandinavian high together and maybe backing the wind into the east. This is how the parallel GFS ready is looking. So that's the operational run. This is the parallel GFS. Again, this will become the operational run later on this year. We find that we've got this deep area of low pressure moving across the country from Monday to Tuesday. That could bring severe gales to parts of Scotland later on Monday. That low pressure moves out towards Norway on Tuesday, turns the winds into the north, so there's that little northerly snap through Tuesday and Wednesday. Could well bring wintry showers to northern and eastern parts of the country, and the high pressure sticks very close to the country through the second half of next week. That brings generally dry, quiet conditions, but also with a fair amount of frost and maybe some fog patches as well. Up to the 12th and 13th of January, so that weekend of 12th and 13th, we gradually move more areas of low pressure in from off the Atlantic, so turning a little bit milder and a little bit more unsettled as well. That's day 10. Monday the 15th of January. Low pressure off the east coast of Scotland there, looking quite wet and windy and starting to pull down some pretty chilly air from the northwest once again. In the more extended range with the parallel GFS run, it looks like low pressure taking an increasingly southerly track. No northern blocking with this parallel GFS run, but what is happening is that we've got the jet stream shifting southward, so the black line is indicating the rough position of the jet stream, so it's well to our south here as we go through into the extended range of the parallel GFS run. That takes these areas of low pressure increasingly south, and we would start to pull cold air in to the north in particular, but also potentially pull some cold air in from the east as well. Of course, with these areas of low pressure engaging with that cold air, there will be a risk of either rain or perhaps even some snow there as we're going towards the middle and then into the second half of January. Again, no true northern blocking signal at this stage. This is as far as we can go with the parallel GFS. It's Sunday the 20th of January. There's no sign of blocking around Greenland or sort of northern Scandinavia or indeed on our side of the Arctic either. But the jet stream is shifting southwards, and these areas of low pressure are going on an increasingly southerly track as well. So we haven't got blocking, but we are putting increasingly cold air in, I think, to the UK as those low pressures dive further and further southwards. This is how the ECMWF is looking for Monday. High pressure is still dominant, but notice that area of low pressure just there. That's going to become quite an important feature through to Tuesday, as it brings a lot of wet and windy weather to the northern part of the country and turns winds into the north, giving us that cold northerly wind from Tuesday through to Wednesday. Again, could be snow showers for northern and eastern parts of the country. In the second half of next week, we cut off that northerly and build this ridge in from the Atlantic, so quiet but quite cold and frosty. Maybe start to turn a little bit less cold by the end of next week in northern parts of the country. In the extended range, we pull that high pressure away into the middle of the Atlantic. Again, similar to what the parallel GFS is showing, actually. We're not getting that high pressure up towards Greenland like we do on the operational GFS, but what we are seeing is these areas of low pressure taking an increasingly southerly track. So again, the jet stream is quite a long way to our south by the time we get through to day 10. We've got these areas of low pressure diving in from the Atlantic and then going down into central and southern parts of Europe, and that's allowing cold air, without any northern blocking, but cold air is being allowed to move in from the north and from the east as well, which could give a potential by day temp for at the very least some wintry conditions, possibly snow, mostly I would have thought over high ground and in the north, but not exclusively so. I mean, that's the situation by day 10. I reckon there could even be a little bit of wintry weather turning up in the south. Let's extend out with the ECMWF. So I'll show you these charts. These are the temperature and precipitation anomalies from the extended 30-day, I think on a Friday it's 46 days, ECMWF run. This is from the Hungarian Met Office. We haven't been updating these charts, doing the updates for them on a Tuesday for a couple of weeks, because the first Tuesday, of course, that we cancelled was Christmas Day, and then the second Tuesday was New Year's Day. We will have the update from the ECMWF at the Hungarian Met Office back for you this coming Tuesday. But the updates on a Tuesday and Friday. This is the temperature anomaly for the coming week. This is from the 7th through to the 13th of the 7th to the 13th of January. And what we find is that the northwest of Europe looks generally quite mild, but most other parts of Europe cold. Much of eastern Europe is cold, much of central southern Europe is cold as well. Out in the northwest, Scandinavia, UK, Ireland, a little bit milder there through the course of the coming week. Then we go through to week 2, and again it's quite a cold scene across many eastern parts of Europe, quite a cold scene down in the south. In the northwest, again, a little bit milder. So to the middle part of January, remember this is the 14th to 20th of January, so up to the middle, and even in the second half of January, still generally quite mild there in the northwest of Europe. But then we start to see a change in the next week. This is from the 21st to the 27th of January, turning much colder over Scandinavia, much colder to the north of the UK, beginning to turn milder across southern Europe and also into southeast Europe as well. So things are shifting to be causing those cold and average temperature anomalies to move north. What we can see as well from the precipitation anomaly here from the 21st to the 27th of January is that it's much drier than average to the north of the UK. So much of Norway is drier than average. Iceland significantly drier than average. This will be indicative of high pressure starting to block in the northern latitudes. You can also see that around the east coast of the UK, the precipitation anomaly is a little bit wetter than average. This would be indicative of easterly winds, I would have thought. Probably bringing snow showers to eastern parts of the country. I mean, if I show you the week 4 anomaly, it's week 5 for the year, but the week 4 temperature anomaly, taking us from the 28th of January to the 3rd of February, goes very cold for northern Europe, much colder than average for Scandinavia, but also colder than average for the central parts of Europe, Germany, Poland, and that cold air is extending into the UK as well, especially England and Wales. So we end January and begin February on a very cold note there for much of central and northern Europe. Southern, southeastern parts of Europe looking quite a lot milder. And again, look at the precipitation anomaly from the 28th of January to the 3rd of February. Shows much drier than average to the north of the UK, much drier than average around Norway, much drier than average around Iceland, even drier than average up towards Svalbard. And this is all indicative of high pressure sitting within the northern latitudes, high pressure blocking to the north, and so that's the reason it's turning much colder, pulling winds in from the Arctic, potentially even from Siberia. So that's the reason it turns much colder across central northern Europe, and the UK is included in that as well. So a very cold end to January and start to February is looking possible there with today's extended ECM. I can show you, I can't show you at the Hungarian Met Office, but I can show you actually the pattern that's causing that to happen. This tweet was put out earlier today from the ProMet forecaster Matt Hugo. Always worth giving Matt a follow. So Matt tweeted that overnight EC monthly goes full on with blocking to the northwest of the UK, with low pressure to the east through the second half of January and into early February. Northerly or northeasterly is possible. Easterly, he does say that EC monthly has been poor by week 3 and 4 of late, but the prediction fits in nicely with overall expectations. And then he has included in that tweet this, which actually shows, I'm not sure if it's 500 millibar heights or mean sea level pressure, but it gives a rough idea of the pattern that's bringing those colder conditions. So I assume this would be week 3 just here, and you can see that there is above average either heights or pressure around Greenland and the northern part of the Atlantic, with a trough of low pressure through the central and northern parts of Europe, which would allow the winds of the jet stream to do something like that. I mean, I think this one must be week 4 over here, and that shows a strengthening of the high pressure signal close to Greenland. Again, it's either mean sea level pressure or 500 millibar heights, I'm not sure, but it shows a strengthening of the high pressure signal around Greenland, with the low pressure through central parts of Europe. Again, you could well be expecting to pull in the winds from an east or possibly even northeasterly direction. Of course, the exact way the cold weather sets up is very speculative and to be determined, but the upshot is that the ECMWF is definitely signalling increasing risks, increasing chance of northern blocking as we get through into the second half of, got very dark in the room again, I'll have to put a light on when I'm finished the video. The ECM is signaling a very block setup, an increasing chance of normal blocking and colder conditions by the time you get through to the second half, particularly the latter part of January and possibly into the start of February, which is in line with the sudden stratospheric warming, of course. Let's change over to a lighter page, see how that improves things a little bit. It does very slightly. So that's in line with the JMA and CFSV2, which we saw from JMA Friday as well. So it looks like we are now beginning to start thinking about getting a tropospheric response to the sudden stratospheric warming, increasing chances of high pressure developing in the northern latitudes by the time you get through to late January. The question is how quickly this is going to happen. So the GFS operational run is actually trying to get high pressure to Greenland within the next couple of weeks. So in by the middle of January, the GFS is going for a very potent northerly blast. It's probably being a bit progressive about that. It will probably be more towards the third week of January when this happens. Before then, we'll probably just get little snaps like the one we're going to get next week, Tuesday, Wednesday. We get that little northerly coming along, and I would suspect what will happen is over the next couple of weeks, these little colder snaps, colder interludes, will get more pronounced, maybe with those southerly tracking areas of low pressure as well. So you'll notice that each shot of colder air becomes colder, if you see what I mean. And then gradually we will probably raise the heights to the north. So by the time you get through to the final week or so of January, we could really be in business with some proper northern blocking. That's the idea, I think, that's within the model output today. Anyway. Right, so that's it for today's videos. We'll be back tomorrow with weekend forecast, and tomorrow we will also have a look at weather next week to 10 days, looking for northern blocking within the model output again, I'm sure. But 28 minutes, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.